Okay, we've got a huge step forward here. Um, what I've got going on here is I've got the PlayStation 3 fight stick. Its USB cable goes into the undamned USB decoder board, which decodes the button presses from the fight stick and turns them into button presses like you would have on an arcade machine, so they're not USB encoded, it's just regular button presses. So there's two headers on this undamned board that you can pull the signal from. There's screw down terminals, and then there's these, what do we call those, post terminals there. Now, I originally was using the screw down terminals, but these wires are so thin it's really hard to get them screwed down into the terminals. So I had some more patch panels, or patch wires, whatever you want to call them, that have single connectors, so I could connect from this header. So that's why some are coming through here and some are coming through here. So as I said, the fight stick goes into the undamned decoder, which decodes it and then sends it over here. So what I've got sending over here currently is up, down, left, right, button 1, button 2, test, service, and start, and a ground. They're going into the JVS, the Tucson Logic JVS-Bridge. This replaces the Sega JVS-IO. 2 players, right side and left side. I only have one USB decoder, so currently only one player, but if I had another one of those, actually I probably should have thought about it and made a spot for 2 of them on this wooden board in a drive bay that I'm going to use for my system. So that way I could have put the JVS bridge somewhere else and added a second player if I wanted to at some point on this same board, but whatever. So the player 1 controls go into here. This does need 5 volts and ground to run, so I'm currently powering it off of the Naomi. So that's 5 volts and ground powering the undamned board. The JVS bridge also needs 5 volts. I'm powering that from the micro USB. Now, here's the thing that I don't know enough about to know without asking somebody. I'll probably email the Tucson Logic guys just to make sure I'm not going to blow anything up. But because I've got 5 volts coming in to the JVS bridge here, there are several points on this board with 5 volts and ground, including player 1 and player 2, the last few rows of pins, the last 2 pins on each side here, 19 and 20, are I believe 5 volts, and 17 and 18 are ground, or the other way around. No, 17, 18 are ground, 19 and 20 are 5 volts. So can I just take the 5 volts off of those pins and run them into this board? So I've got 5 volts from a power supply going into this board, 5 volts in ground coming out and going into this board. Can I do that, or is that going to draw too much power through this board and cause a problem with this board? So I don't want to take a chance on blowing this board up. So for this test, I've got, like I said, I've got a separate 5 volt and ground going into this board, 5 volt and ground going into this board. And then this has, like I said, up, down, left, right, button 1, 2, start, test, select, and a ground going over to this board. So if we look over here, obviously I've got the joystick up, down, right, left, but 1, button 2, I made this test and this service just for testing purposes, because you'd never want that in real life, because if you were playing a game and you accidentally hit test, you're going to bump the game into test mode. That would be bad. And then one of the buttons on the front, there's two buttons. One is start and one is select. So the start button on the front should be wired up to start a game. Unfortunately, I can't actually start a game right now because the connector that I'm using to supply 5 volts to the undamned USB decoder board is the one that I use to power my compact flash. So it won't load a game. I could pop that out and put tennis in because I've got the Power Smash cartridge. But for now I just wanted to test this like I am right now. And so the main thing was to see if these buttons would work. And again, this is probably not the best way to film this, but if I hit this button here, that's the test button. That button is on the front of the Naomi, where the power connectors and the I/O board and the video and audio connectors are. So it's wired up now to this button. So when I put this in the PC, I might, on the front panel, one of the front panels of the PC, I might just install 2 buttons, one for test and one for service. Then you don't have to reach inside the case if you need to put the Naomi in test mode. So brilliant, it actually works. So then as I press the button below it, you can see the arrow going down. So select, or service is the button that moves the arrow down. That's all it does. It just goes down, not up and down, just down. And then you use test to select something. And so there on the screen, you can see the Tucson Logic JVS-Bridge. Sorry, it's sideways. The last game I had in here was sideways. So the other thing you can do from here is input test. Press the input test. Now on the joystick, I'm going to go up, down, left, right. Button 1, button 2, and where's my start button in the front here? There you go, start. So all the buttons that I have mapped actually work, which is totally awesome. That JVS-Bridge, even with the USB, the undamned USB decoder, is still way smaller than a Sega JVS I/O board. So there we go, proof of concept. This is a fairly big thing. In fact, here, let me do this. Let me actually do something useful with these buttons. This Naomi is set for vertical mode. That's in system assignments. So if I select system assignments, monitor type, horizontal. There we go. And now, if I had power to my compact flash, I could load a game and actually play it with 2 buttons and start, as long as the game was on free play. So, super, super happy about this. I mounted this to the board over the weekend really quick. I work weekends, so it was just before I went to work. I 3D printed some spacers to get those high enough that the cables come out at a decent level. I am going to cut this hard drive tray down a little bit because I noticed that the spacers I printed for this board, this plug for the fight stick is a little bit thick, so I'm going to dish out an area so that it's not lifting that board up in the front. It's not too bad, but it's enough that I want to make sure I get rid of that tension. So yeah, the only thing I'd rather do is, like I said, the 5 volts I've got coming from the power supply, a Molex plug, into this board. This board has 5 volt and ground pins. Can I just take 5 volt and ground from this board and put it into that board, and then I don't have to use 5 volts from the Naomi or make another cable from the PC power supply that supplies 5 volts to get to this board. I just don't know enough about electronics to know if that's an okay thing to do or not. So, successful test, very happy. Another thing I did, I can't show you because it's in the other room, but I went out and bought a used power supply. I actually got a used home theater PC, HT that had a 400 watt Corsair power supply in it. And I took the power supply out and I tested that earlier today, and its voltages I like even a little bit better than this one. The 5 volts is really good. It's like 5.0 something. Wavers a little bit. And then the 3 volt on this one, this thermal take, is a bit high. It's 3.37 and 8-ish, bounces back and forth. The other one's 3.35 and 6, bouncing back and forth. So the other one has a little bit lower on the 3.3, which I like because it gets it closer to actually 3.3. So I've now got my loaner power supply here from my friend that I'll be giving back to him. I've got the permanent one that's going in the cabinet. This is the wiring on this is not the final way I'll do it. I'm not sure how I'm going to do it. Like I said, there's screw terminals. This one only has header pins. You can use a ribbon cable on there, but a ribbon cable, there's no way, I don't see how you could put a ribbon cable in these screw down terminals and get the wire to actually sit in there tight, when these things here, these wires wouldn't do it. They were popping out and it was really hard to get them in tight enough to do this test. So I'm not 100% sure on the best way to get the wires from one of these boards to the other. I kind of do like these single pin patch cables, or whatever you want to call them. I think that's a good idea because I forgot that they were, honestly, I forgot they were on the back of this board when I started doing it, and I was using the screw down terminals, and that was a pain in the neck. This way's much easier. I've got more slack because I'm just using whatever size these wires were. I don't have enough of these wires, and the only thing that makes me nervous about them is their fit isn't like super tight. Whereas if you get a thicker gauge wire and put it in the screw terminal and screw it down, it'll be in there really tight. These things are, they're okay, but it is a kind of a weak point. So the other thing you can use for these, you can use like a ribbon cable, but I'd have to like custom order a ribbon cable that had the pin out for this side and the pin out for this side, because they're not the same. So for example, on this, up, down, left, right might be 1, 2, pins 1, 2, 3, 4, and over here, up, down, right, left might be 1, 2, 3, 4. So I don't think you can get a ribbon cable that would fit on both and everything would be in the right spot. So there is that. But yeah, I do like these header pins. I just wish they fit on a little bit tighter. I had some that I threw away because they were super loose. I took the pins out of the housing and kind of pinched them tighter, and then after just putting them on and off a couple times, they were so loose that they wouldn't stay on at all. So I'm guessing there's variable quality of those. But yeah, awesome. First time I've had actually running with usable buttons here, and the test and service, I wasn't sure that they would work the same as on the front of the Naomi. There they are in the corner there. So test and service there you can map them to any button through the JVS-Bridge. So I can hook buttons on the outside of the PC case I'm putting all this stuff in, and you don't have to open the PC case and try and reach in there and push the little buttons there if you need to get in the test mode, so that's cool. Alright, that's it for that video. This project is moving along.